Guys, it's Miss Rose, and I just wanted to jump in and talk about that My AP Classroom FRQ that I recently finished scoring. I know that some of you might have been a little disappointed by the score and also be concerned about the test on Friday. So I just wanted to use a paragraph that didn't quite hit the mark to show you how to do it better. Okay. So I've gone through and highlighted the expectations from the prompt. We had to identify the author's claim. We had to give the reasoning for that claim. We had to provide evidence, and we had to provide commentary of that evidence, linking the commentary explaining how the evidence developed the claim. So what you really do have is kind of like what they're doing is they're building a template for you to use when you're writing an analysis essay, which will be the first essay that we really study how to write. So let's look at this student's claim. In the article, Asian Men Can Jump, Jen claims that the treatment from varying Asian parents was affected by the circumstances of their upbringing and personal development. So when you are asked to discuss an author's claim, you're being asked to discuss an overall claim. The work that we've done with the rhetorical situation, when you get to that message statement, that's really what they're asking. What is the ultimate purpose? What is the ultimate message? Okay. So you can, when you write your claim statement, really kind of pull back and test and ask yourself, is that what the entirety of this piece is all about? And if you can say yes to that, then I would move forward. But if you can also be self critical and really consider it in the context of the piece that you've read, maybe it might reveal to you that you need to revise some things. Because the number one thing you don't want to do is oversimplify the author's purpose. The reasoning, Jen developed this claim from witnessing the differing parental support from his family to others, specifically to the parents of Jeremy Lin. Jen's brother was an elite athlete, and his parents did not actively support him. However, Jen observed Jeremy Lin's parents continuously support him in his athletics. Jen also noted the difference between other Asian athletes' family treatment, including Amy Chua's parents, who used violence to discipline her. Due to his observations, he believed that the origin of these parents had an effect on how they treated their families. And so, definitely this student it's not off as far as recognizing that these things do exist in the piece, but off just a little bit in the ultimate message of the piece. um, and we can see a misreading here too. Amy Chuas is not an athlete. She is a writer who wrote a memoir about being the tiger mom, and the reason that Jen would have brought in this reference because at that time, I do believe this memoir had just been published, and it was quite a controversial text for many, and it was discussed quite heavily in social media, just at the water fountain, all that sort of thing. So that's another thing that I want to point out. When you're tasked with reading for these AP test lists, assessments, the exam itself, you are being given a complex text and you are being tested to see if you can read and understand a complex text and talk about it with uh, an equal an equally complex discussion of your own. So, if you think it's hard, it is hard. And so just be comfortable with that. Be comfortable with the fact that it's challenging. Now, the student pulls in evidence. So let's look at this first piece. Jen includes the ethnic background of the Lin's family when he mentions that in Taiwan there is an alternative track, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And so the student commentary is supposed to explain how the evidence develops the claim, how the author is using that evidence to develop the claim. This can support the claim that differing upbringings can alter how Asian Americans treat their families. Okay, so when you follow it with a statement like that, you're not explaining how um, the evidence supports anything. You're saying that it supports it, but you need to say something um, very blunt to the point. Don't start your commentary with the word this. Instead, we could say that, let's see, if we were to cut this and just look at this part, let's see how that sounds. Jeremy Lin's father may support his son's drive for athletics because his place of birth culturally supported the idea of excelling in other areas besides schooling. Okay. So that's a start, but then you have to get into the big idea of, well, so what? So, what is it about this that the author is exploring to support this claim? While Amy Chuas, and I'm sorry, I'm sure I'm butchering her name, father lived in an area of the Philippines with a hostile native population, they circled the wagons and emphasized tradition. His upbringing focused on tradition, which plays a part in how he was taught to raise his children. Jen's claim, your region's culture affects how you treat others, can easily be supported. Don't ever say something can easily be obviously done. It's your job to make the reader understand. Don't claim that you have easily discovered something in your piece. um, be supported by the examples of the Asian Americans' families and their differing methods of parenting. Again, this piece of evidence reveals a misreading of the text because what Jen is doing here is talking about her father who had immigrated to the Philippines, where the population was quite hostile towards him and his family. So he emphasized this very specific tradition because in the Philippines, his culture was treated in a hostile way. So you got to be really, really careful and ask yourself, is this really proving something? So in general, this did not successfully um, complete the FRQ. So I wanted to talk about how to get better because really it's all in the beginning, it's all in your rhetorical situation statement. And if you write a nice rhetorical situation statement, you're going to get in a developed claim as well as reasoning for that claim. So I want you to use this step by step kind of exploration that the College Board is trying to show us to develop your sentence where you identify the author's claim and explore the reasoning for it. We're going to use that rhetorical situation statement process to write that, and you're going to be more successful. So I've gone through, and these are the 6 things I look for when I write the rhetorical situation statement. Um, just because that term context sometimes the overall context of something is related to the message, I think. And so I don't want you to get overly hung up on that. But my AP, the College Board talks about context because they want you to have a mature sense of your reading. They want you to see how whatever it is they have asked you to read, how it fits into a broader context. A more so they want you to kind of think. I've been at trainings where they've said they want your expression and your consideration to be more mature than the average 17-year-old. When you're considering context, you're considering the piece in a global kind of, and I don't necessarily mean global like the world, but more of um, the myriad of conversations people could have about this same topic. Okay. So I said that the exigence was Jeremy Lin's success as an athlete. I said now the prompt itself gave you the initial purpose, and it was to reflect on the significance of Lin's success. I would never use the exact words or even the hint because they always give you a hint in the prompt about the meaning of the text. But I would never use that as the purpose, as the message. I would work to get much more concrete and reflect from the entirety of the piece, not just the little hint they give you in the prompt. Now we know that the audience is the New York Times because they've given us that citation at the bottom. And we realize that an educated audience would read the New York Times. Now, this is an example of an indirect audience. So when you're considering audience for this, it may be a little bit more difficult or more challenging. So sometimes the best you can do is to consider where something was published and then consider, or what it was published in, and then consider that audience. Now, the occasion was that Jeremy Lin just had some great success with the New York Knicks. And if you wanted to, she does kind of talk about these tensions that China is considered. What does she say? She says, just at a time when China seems to spell threat, we have the lens to remind us that China spells gifts too. So perhaps this significance of Lynn's success in Jen's mind relates to this as well, that Lynn can somehow dispel that stereotype that China means threat. So this is not my message, this is my message. Okay. And so I felt like, and now notice how in depth the message is, okay? Because that's where I've really kind of thought through all the elements. And now I'm really trying to formulate in my mind, what is this piece all about? What am I supposed to take away from it? So I felt that Jen seeks to explore how cultures, one of two worlds, can function to build a human being, but it is the human being that fully decides on their path. She explores cultural templates and how Asian Americans have begun to create new ones and reflects on this in the larger context of the American template. Okay. So I would say that this student picked up on a reflection Jen was making about these varied parental styles and how they connect to place to build her overall claim about templates. So you have to be careful and to kind of watch out for how the author perhaps is building the full meaning of the text. So here is my rhetorical situation statement. I tend to write them in 2 sentences just because I think it's a great deal of information that the College Board is asking you to consider. And I just think too that what they're doing in having you focus on rhetorical situation like we are in such a small chunk, they're teaching you how to make a very strong thesis paragraph for an analysis essay. And we'll talk about that later, but literally your thesis paragraph in an analysis essay can be 2 to 3 sentences in length. And if you become adept at writing these rhetorical situation statements, they really don't need much more tweaking to become your thesis paragraph so that you can move immediately into analysis. So here's my rhetorical situation sentence, which, pulls in the claim and everything. An Asian Men Can Jump, Gish Jin reflects upon the success of Jeremy Lin, an Asian American basketball player who has broken cultural traditions. Ultimately, this New York Times article pushes the audience to consider how the children of Asian immigrants have begun to transform strict cultural templates, making their own marks on the American culture as a whole. So now I have something that I can really kind of dig into and start to find evidence to support. Okay. So I hope this has helped. I'm going to do another screencast on writing the rhetorical situation statement. So hopefully that will help you too. Thanks.